Fourth level of learning paper number 17, Leaving the Cosmic Battlefield. Vi. A deeper look at the Mother Goddess, Lil, and the Galactic War of the Genders. With the above section, changing the dream in mind, let's take a deeper look at the main dreamer, who is the Mother Goddess herself. I only know of one source who has really looked into this from many different angles. We have a tendency here on Earth to think that the real God, or in this case, Goddess, is flawless and omnipresent. She doesn't make any mistakes and she has no dark sides in the sense that we humans do. Is this really true? Aren't we all smaller counterparts of the goddess, with all her might and all her dark sides too? While she's dreaming, doesn't she allow all sides of herself to be explored? Would she really learn everything about herself if she let parts of herself remain hidden and suppressed? I think it's obvious that the goddess in her omnipresent form has both good and bad sides attributed to her, as above, so below. I think we can see that when we look around as well. Why all these wars, both in the heavens and here on Earth? Why all these dark secrets, killing, raping, you name it? We know so well that there are those who are involved in such dramas, but if the goddess is everything, she is both the highest spectrum of love and the lowest spectrum of hate. However, look at you and me, and let's call us normal, which means we have both good sides and dark sides, but we work hard in order to do as much good as we can because we don't want to hurt ourselves and others. I believe it's the same thing with the goddess, but her feelings and emotions are so unbelievably stronger than ours, and that is what is reflecting in her universes, or her dreams. I wanted to save this part until the end of my papers because I believe it's one of the most important things to look into. By knowing our creatrix, we also know ourselves, and the way to know our creatrix is to look at ourselves. When I first looked into the phenomenon of a female god as the prime creator, it felt a little awkward. We are so used to thinking of God in terms of a masculine being. However, once I dared to continue looking into something I knew could come back at me with full force, the evidence of a female force being the creator was overwhelming. It didn't take long before I totally accepted it. The next thing was to accept that the goddess actually can splinter herself into counterparts of herself, not only in the sense that you and I are counterparts of her in larger terms, but that she manifests herself as the Queen of Orion, planet Gaia, and I am sure she has a lot of other manifestations as well, which we as of yet are not aware of. That this was the case became too obvious to disregard, and after a while, it was easy to integrate it into the bigger puzzle because it fit right in. Also, what about her consort, the mysterious Lil, whom so many people, at least here on Earth, have misunderstood and misidentified so grossly, as it appears? Both of these entities are considered divine as soon as we get outside the grid. Now, the question is, are we going to just accept them as divine without any scrutiny and continue making the same mistakes we've done with our own deities in our own planetary history, or do we dare to look at them, too, as we've done with Ki and others? I think it's important to stand on our sovereign feet and be brave enough to look at them from all the sides we can, not with the intention to talk them down or humiliate them, but with the intention to understand them better as the beings of the universe, which they are. In this universe, we have the feminine and the masculine, and it's pretty obvious, as I showed in level 2, that the universe is not neuter, neither is it masculine in nature. In spite of all other evidence, all we need to do is to think logically. Which force is it that reproduces? Is it the masculine, the feminine, or the neuter? The answer is, of course, the feminine. The other two forces can't reproduce. Neuter is not a force at all. The feminine force is the only force in the universe that can reproduce without help from any other force. That's also how it all started. The first beings in the universe were feminine, androgynous, and then cloned themselves. However, these perfect clones were prone to getting viruses, and once a virus attached to one clone, it was easy to attach to any clone, because they were all alike. That's when the masculine force was created, and from the point when reproduction was done by having sex between a male and a female, the offspring became unique and had an easier time getting immune against viruses. After life had started in the universe and in this galaxy, Mother Goddess decided to splinter herself into different entities in order to experience her game from a closer perspective and not just as an outside dreamer with no chance to participate. Two of these manifestations are known to us. One is the Orion Queen, and the other is Mother Gaia or Mother Earth. This is a universe of free will, and therefore, the goddess is very allowing. She allows both good things and bad things to happen because everything should have its right to exist and evolve. This shows that she is a true loving being. A true loving being allows energies to flow and does not protect certain energies and stop others from moving. Thus, we have a very fluid universe where everything is possible, but love is the ultimate force, love on a level which is still very hard for us humans to understand. She is so loving that she lets her counterpart, the Queen of the Stars, show negative emotions in order for her to create from all perspectives. The Queen, however, at one point decided that love and compassion are the energetic forces which do the most good and are most important for survival. However, at one point before that, The goddess, i.e. the feminine force, did something that started this whole problem in the first place, although this was never the intention. This was the so-called dark side of the divine feminine coming into play. The divine feminine as an energy force splintered off as new beings were born and the universe was populated. The universe now consisted of a lot of both female and male entities, but just because the females were first on the chessboard, she started dominating the male, and as time went by, males were more and more used as sexual partners and breeders than companions and equals. It went so far that females began to kill their male lovers after they had completed the sexual act. Some were castrated and sacrificed after a one-time sexual act, until it came to a point when this became considered more or less normal. Some females even ate the male after she had sex with him. The black widow spider here on Earth does the same thing. As above, so below. This very ancient story has been told equally by two sources. The Pleiadians, 15, and Anton Parks, in his Chronicles of the Gearclue, volumes 1 and 2, and The Ages of Ura's website, hosted by Jerry and Malu Zeitlin, based upon these two volumes, 16. I have also read fragments of this in different ancient texts. In addition, when I've read about this, I can feel that it rings true. Instead of coming to terms with the problem, things went out of hand. Males, in their turn, started to revolt against this maltreatment of the male energy and misuse of energy on behalf of the females. They began to turn things around and, instead, started treating females as badly as they had been treated, and suppressed the female energy, or worse. This became a galactic, perhaps a universal problem, and a war of the genders took place, a war that is still ongoing. Males then rewrote the history of the universe in the sense that they refused to acknowledge the divine feminine as the main source of the universe, the one creator. This is where the fable that the universe is neuter or masculine originates. Many bitter galactic war has been fought over this matter, but as we can see, these battles and wars at one point interact with each other, merge, and become the same war. I am not saying that Lucifer's rebellion started out as a gender war, though, but it definitely became one, as we know. If we really dig deep enough, we can almost certainly find the gender issue being at the absolute bottom of the Lucifer rebellion, as well. Because after all, Lucifer felt he was neglected and not acknowledged as the powerful being he thought he was, and as the story is told, he still wants to overthrow his own mother and become the king of the KHAA. The male energy at work. If he succeeds, there will be a king in charge of the Orion Empire instead of a queen, which would not be the first time. See level 2, but Lucifer can never change the fact that the universe is feminine because he can never become the all that is, the one creator. He is a product of the one creator, a player in her dream. Our solar system was created by the goddess. Again, real creation can only happen from feminine energies. What Lucifer did, as Lord En.Ki, was to manipulate what was already created, and even this he had to do with help from technology. The real creators of life in this solar system were females, and their followers, such as Queen and Son, Prince Minerva, was a matriarch, while Lucifer, who came later and defeated the first team of creators, was, and is, a patriarch. Therein lies most of the conflict in the two sides of the war. It is said that those who support the goddess are on the side of the matriarchs, and all the rest are patriarchs, and enemies of the original, real creation. Lucifer came, and the world changed drastically from a matriarchal paradise to a patriarchal hell because the patriarchs were, and still are, revengeful, while the matriarchs are not. However, my research has come to the point where I see no resolution to the galactic problem other than the feminine and masculine forces must stop blaming each other and once again come to terms with what they both have done to each other. Not until both forces declare each other equal, in balance with each other, will these ancient gender wars that are still ongoing become memories that should eventually be forgiven but never forgotten. Once forgotten, the same story may unfold again. Some say that we should forgive Lucifer and his minions and start anew. On the surface, this sounds as if it is a good idea, but if there are no repercussions for what we do, someone else will do the same thing in the future, knowing that he or she will eventually be forgiven for crimes committed. In this case, it's a little bit more complicated because the matriarchs, when they went astray, never got penalized for what they did, and the Luciferian force may bring this up as a justification why they should not be penalized. Hence, I think that this is much bigger than just letting us humans put a verdict on Lucifer and his cohorts. We can only judge them for what they have done here on Earth, not for what happened previous to that or what is happening in other places of the galaxy. Thus, the way I see it is that there, optimally, should be some kind of galactic court where human representatives as well as Luciferian representatives and matriarchal representatives are present. Not until then do we have a chance to come to terms with this entire mess. Maybe we need judges from other parts of the galaxy that were never affected by the gender wars, so they can see things from a neutral, not so charged, viewpoint. In such a court, humans would be more like witnesses. Here on Earth, we are brought up in a patriarchal society, not only the generations that are still alive, but the whole Homo sapiens branch of humanity. We need to realize that the creating force and source are feminine, and so is the one creatrix, the all that is. This is the first thing that needs to be understood, and not until we realize this can a real change take place. If we look at a woman and a man here on Earth, they are different and have very different energies. However, they should be considered equal as beings because of the way our species and the universe, in general, these days are designed. Femininity and masculinity are both very much needed and should be treated with equal respect. As long as one is claiming superiority over the other, failure will be the outcome. History has shown this all too well, both here on Earth and elsewhere. There is a trend in our time that women should be like men, dress like men, act like men, feel like men, and fight like men. All this goes against nature. A woman is a woman and a man is a man. This doesn't mean that each sex doesn't have the other sex's attributes as well, and that these attributes would be best worked on in order to understand them, but not to become them. The trend I'm talking about has of course been set up by the patriarchal regime, and the females have simply bought into it. This began to get serious when the Rockefeller Foundation started the feminine movement, which created all this confusion between sexes. The entire movement was an attempt to split up the family unit, which the patriarchs thought was very threatening to them. Com.En.Lil, which I see not only as Queen's consort, but also as an attempt to balance out the female and male energies, perhaps in order to start working on the gender problem. As the stories are told, Com.En.Lil was a born warrior and is still in charge of the MIKH warrior troops. However, these troops have, from what I've learned, become much more of a defensive force. The Aryan Empire in itself is not a warlike empire anymore, and from what it seems, the defense we are talking about here comes mainly from defending themselves against the patriarchal regime, led by Prince Lucifer. Also, a vast empire, such as the Aryan Empire, needs to safeguard its borders to protect its citizens, so battles are being fought every now and then when an intruding ET force is trying to break into Orion. The Aryan Empire is apparently open to the option of forgiving Lucifer if he redeems himself, and this is something they have been waiting for to happen for many eons now. So far, Lucifer has not shown any signs of remorse, but instead, seems to be working hard to become even more offensive. Perhaps the answer lies in a serious attempt from both sides to admit their offensive acts before one side is willing to give it up. If Lucifer is told that he and the male part are the only sinners, he may never give in, but if he is told that both sides are at fault, maybe it opens up doors for discussions. I am approaching this from a human standpoint. I know that, and in reality, this may be inadequate in this particular situation, but that is all I can do. I am human and so are my suggestions. Lucifer, however, seems to have had ulterior motives that are not directly connected to the gender war, more of a family dispute, and that is also something that needs to be looked at from an Orion standpoint. For us here on Earth, it is important to once again acknowledge the divine feminine as the creatrix and the driving force in this universe, but without giving it absolute power. We must come to terms with that we are equal in all our differences. Ultimately, this is not our war, and the problems they have in the heavens must be resolved by these beings, but we can start by refusing to be dominated by a male power. We are not going to tolerate being manipulated anymore, and we'll let this be known by refusing to be treated as slaves, and one by one or in small groups to begin with, we start building our lives and working on becoming independent from that which suppresses us and backs us up in a corner, such as the monetary system. Deprive the banks of their power and we'll see how much control the elite has after that. We can't accomplish this overnight, and it has to start with an idea that is growing in the mindset of people, an idea that we can survive without the system, without their oppressive money and their job industry, that is nothing less than pure slavery in a new form. How much of this can be done in one generation, I don't know, but once the idea has started and continues to grow, the oppressive system will strangle itself and run out of oxygen. In our next lifetime, for those who choose to stay on Earth, we qualify for a more mature reality, and the oppressors eventually run out of followers. I know it's inevitable that some will wake up too late, if at all, but I believe there is a great future for mankind, and that future is not here on this very distorted version of Earth but in a more balanced world, in which those who wake up will qualify to be born into and to bring the human race further into multidimensionality and freedom. This must be a lesson for us all because we are not innocent in all this either. One way or the other, we agreed to this oppressive reality, and we have all contributed directly to that reality and allowed this oppressive world to continue. Now is the time for learning and for forgiveness of self and each other because there is no time whatsoever to hold grudges anymore, not for anybody. We must even forgive our worst enemies, not because we don't want them to take responsibility for their actions, which is their problem, but so that we don't hold bad feelings against anybody when we move on. If we have grudges, we will keep that string alive between the new, brighter reality and the old, darker one. Unless that cord is cut, the new world will not sustain itself. By default, those who have not worked on these issues and gotten rid of them will not qualify for the new reality anyway. Not because I say so, it's just not physically, mentally, or spiritually possible. Forgiving our oppressors is the best way to go at this moment, as I see it, because I can't imagine seeing a galactic court being set up in this lifetime, and we need to move on. The court idea will be a subject for future generations, possibly. Still, I ask people to start thinking about what kind of penalty we would like for the Luciferian force, also because we may want to educate our own children in what is going on and discuss these things with them. Regardless what the verdict will be, we still need to forgive them inside ourselves, not to hold grudges, which will stop our own growth and happiness. Forgiveness and verdict are two different things.